And we're live, so let me do the introduction. I'll let you talk.
Oh, you want me to do the introduction?
Yes,
Okay. Well, my name is Neil Williams, and I am the father of 8 beautiful children whom I love very, very much. And 4 years ago, I decided I needed some help developing myself. And so I started visiting through Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey and Peggy McCall. And in the Bob Proctor group, he suggested I get an accountability partner. And so I reached out to all of the people in the group. And after, you know, cream rises to the top, after a lot of work, Delphine found me and I found her. And so from France and Idaho, we have been supporting each other for 4 years now in our personal growth and development. So, Delphine, would you introduce yourself and how you came to this?
absolutely. So yes, 4 years already. Still from France, but not exactly the same place in France. And I was just like you. I was living a life that was okay to most of the people, I would say. Had my job, had a great apartment, and a lot of, I would say, other activities that were kind of fulfilling me, but not that much. And I was like, no, but if I die today, it's not really the life I wanted to live. And that's when I decided to do more and explore, like we're doing right now. And I came across Bob Proctor in that famous video where it was like he was in Las Vegas and it was like, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And I was like, oh, that's true. And funny because I was such into English and the international world, but I had never been to the States or in an English speaking country. So in 2019, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to a Bob Proctor seminar. And that's where it all started, actually. And when you do a Bob Proctor program, when you're in such an environment, what they tell you is that you have to find an accountability partner that is going to help you follow your dreams, your goals, and say, hey, so regarding that goal, what have you done? Have you taken action? And so I looked for you, I guess, and I found you. And here we are.
Here we are, 4 years later. And I mean, the number of books that we've read together, the number of tragedies and traumas and excitement and moves and changes and growth that we've experienced together. Honestly, I look forward to this every Sunday. So even though our audience doesn't get to see that we meet up every Sunday, we've been doing this almost every Sunday for 4 years. And to me, it is a highlight of my week because I get to talk about stuff here that people at work would never even imagine.
Absolutely. And it's really, what we talk about as it's kind of different, a different music or a different song we're playing when we're together. It's just, you have to know the lyrics. And even if we invent the lyrics, we kind of know the lyrics already. And it's always reassuring to know, okay, this happened to me, so I'm going to play the song again, but maybe differently, and keep going.
I will never forget the time that you came to me and you were frustrated with your family or with a relationship or a friendship. And I had just read Byron Katie, Loving What Is. And we went through and we did the work. And it was so much fun to watch your eyes go from, oh, this is so frustrating and sad, to, you know what? This is okay. And this is something that we can work with. And I've been in the same boat when I've come to you with, I'm so frustrated with my own growth or things, my family. I mean, I love my kids, but they do present some interesting challenges. And oh yes, there was one challenge that I remember coming to you with that I just didn't know how to get out of, and that was multi-level marketing.
Yeah, it was a step and it happened, so it should have happened. So that's it. And maybe it's going to happen again.
Yeah, but yeah, just to have somebody that I can talk to about the energy of the activity, and knowing that, well, you reminded me of Dolores Cannon and the work that she does in past life regressions. And you know, I think often, even if I'm losing something, I'll just come back around and pick it up.
Because actually you're never losing. And this is what you just talked about when I came to you and I was like on a low frequency, and you just remind me, but remember, Delphine, if you look at it like this, it's nothing it's not that big of a deal. And it's funny because we have that relationship to the past, and actually we're kind of watching it. I don't know if you know the series Lost, where
I know of it, but I've never actually watched it.
well, actually, I have watched it, but I don't remember enough. But now that I'm rewatching it, it's actually about an island that time travels. And actually, even though it time travels, the thing is, what happened happened. So you cannot have an impact on the past. If it happened, it had to happen. And I think this is exactly on point with the subject we are treating today about losing and letting go. Because if something happened, it was meant to happen and you cannot change it. And I think that's the greatest frustration we experience down here. Now, what do you think about that?
Well, I was listening to a book just the other day, and one of the quotes, a famous quote from who knows where, forgiveness is giving up on the hope of a better past. It's see, the part of the reason I love the title of this show today was losing is you feel regret, you feel remorse, you feel sometimes shame, guilt, etc. Letting go, you feel power, you feel in control, you feel 100% responsible. And sometimes when you feel loss and then you let go of that loss, you regain your power. And so you can lose something and then let go, and you can experience both the lack of power and the regaining of power.
Absolutely. And actually, yes, losing is being powerless, and the power is in letting go. You're totally right. But when it happens, you're in the middle of that, I would say that storm, emotional storm that, and as you know, I've moved to another place, and I told you my flight was canceled and then delayed. And now it's all good, but I was in the middle of that storm. It was not that good, even though we made the best out of it and had one day in Paris and it was very good. But when you learn the news, you're just disappointed and you feel like, oh my gosh, it's not how it was supposed to be. Yeah.
And yet, ultimately, you still got there.
We did.
And that, to me, is why Dolores Cannon brings me so much hope. Is, yes, your parents were divorced, or you were physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally abused as a child. You lost that job that you loved so much. You broke a leg or had to have surgery. You lost. But in the reality, you still get exactly where you're supposed to go. And to me, that means I love traveling for work for this reason. If something goes wrong, you get a hotel room and you spend an extra night there. It's just not that big of a deal.
It's just that we're not used to dealing with the unexpected.
That's exactly it. But when you find peace, when you find the balance and the center, I think we can navigate through that much more easily. What do you think? What makes it easy for you to survive that stuff?
I'm just gonna say one word, it's experience.
Mm.
Uh, as an example, when I arrived here on the island, uh, my partner was like, so what do you think? Do you like it? And it's extraordinary. It's like it's in the Caribbean and beautiful. But I was like, okay, because I'm so used to traveling, seeing new landscapes, and I was expecting this to happen. And this is one interesting point because when you talk about manifesting, you have to feel there or here before it arrives. And it's exactly what happened. I was like, okay, I'm home, you know? So experience, I guess, is the key word because the more you do that exercise that you're going through really challenging circumstances, the easier it gets. But it's never easy. It gets easier, but it's not easy, I would say. No?
True. I think I think it's that you get more self-confident, because that's what self-confidence is believing you can get through this. And I have to admit, the first time my flight got canceled, I didn't know what to do. But I followed somebody who did, and they showed me, oh yeah, you go over here and you talk to these people, they take care of you. And honestly, yeah, I'm experiencing that in my college courses right now. How the heck do I find this? I don't know what I'm looking for. And just one person saying, oh yeah, you look over here and it's right there.
And this is exactly what happened when I had my first flight canceled. I had someone who had already experienced this. Actually, that person told me, oh, this always happens to him. And so I just followed the lead. And I guess in the end, you just have to have faith enough that you're going to find that person that is going to show you the way in any circumstance, you know?
Yeah. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Exactly.
When the student needs the teacher will appear.
Yes, when he's open or when she's open to it, because sometimes you're really not. We think we're open, but we're not, and it's when we're stuck, I guess, in the ego.
Yeah. And there is nothing that blows up the ego more than a canceled flight.
Yeah.
Something that is completely outside of your control.
Absolutely. and you still have to make the best of it, but you will realize that once it's passed, you know?
And isn't the same thing true when you lose a family member, a parent, you lose your job? So you know I've been fired over 5 times, right?
Yes. I didn't.
I'm still here.
And you've grown from it, so.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In fact, it's because of all of those pains, because of all of those losses, that I actually turned to personal development. And personal development really gave me a lot of hope in that, um, oh shoot, William James says that we create our world. And so I began asking myself, what would I have to believe in order for me to keep losing these jobs? And as soon as I started questioning that, I let go of those fears, those blocks, and all of a sudden, good things started showing up.
But like, of course, good things show up, but also there are also challenging steps that will happen and you won't understand. Because if I look back like 5 years ago, I could have never imagined my current life. Of course, I still have most of my dreams and goals, but I never envisioned it like this. But I had to go through some very, very challenging times, and it's not over because I guess that's the path. Um, but know that those challenging moments are necessary because there are some things you need to get rid of, those limiting thoughts and
Mm,
beliefs.
yeah. Yeah, those are the things you could easily lose and your life would be better.
Yet,
But you're right. In you can't get where you're going if you keep doing exactly the same thing that you've always done. And I mean, you are seeing now the results of your belief that and it's been so much fun for me to watch as your beliefs have grown, as your desires have changed, because when we first started working together, you were in a very comfortable career and I wanted to be a life coach. And then you became an English coach and I got into a very comfortable career.
see, and even about the singing part, I totally switched my mindset over that. And because I think there is a time for everything, and just accepting sometimes that what you really want may not be for right now, and that desire can evolve. Mm.
Yeah, that that evolving, that's something you have to be willing to let go of other paths. One of my mentors said that saying no to one thing means that you're saying yes to something else. And if you say yes to everything, you're saying no to yourself. So if everybody else matters more than you, if you do whatever somebody else suggests, you're saying no to yourself.
And this is so much what we are taught, saying yes to everybody else except you, no?
Yeah.
And you don't even realize when you're doing that.
That's one thing I loved about Joseph Murphy was his constant emphasis on you are the God. You're the God that you've been looking for. So quit trying to please your pastor's God or the God who says, I need somebody to help move, or I need somebody to teach this class, or I need somebody to do this. That's their God. You don't have to be constantly beholden to what somebody else wants. And but it's what we're taught. We need to please mom and dad. We need to please the church. We need to please, I don't know, our boss.
Yes, the external world, like,
Uh-huh.
and we forgot. Yes, and just the power of dreams, but I'm not talking about the dreams aspirations, but the dreams you really have at night. And sometimes those dreams can be so powerful and have messages for us. And then you remember that you're connected to something else. Of course, some people might find that this is totally crazy, but when you really connect to something that has meaning to you, to some people you used to know, and it feels like they're just next to you, talking to you, well, anybody can say everything, but you know you have that connection. And we forgot that the power comes from inside that other reality. And that gives us strength too. Once we realize that we are programmed to forget, we're programmed to, oh, I want that new TV, I want that new computer, I want that movie, I want that game, that new job that's going to fulfill me. That's so much money, but the money is inside.
Yeah. The value, the riches, the wealth, it's all inside of you.
But as long as you've not experienced it, it's just blah blah blah, some noise in the background. It's not real. It's just those crazy people talking, because yeah. See?
Yeah, Lulu, crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so how did you start? I mean, yeah, you heard Bob Proctor speak back in 2019, but have you always kind of had a little interest in personal development?
I would say no.
Hmm.
But I always felt there was something I couldn't understand. And the world of, I don't know, dreams, or I don't know, the deja vu, deja vu,
Oh yeah.
things like this. But never really. I thought that world was kind of a bit crazy. Really, that's the world. I wouldn't really, it's just like, because before becoming vegan, I never would have fathomed that in my mind before.
Yep.
So no. So what really made me evolve is circumstances, people. People are the deal breaker. It's the people you meet who kind of have the same experience, the same vibe, and who makes you believe it's not possible that this is just a coincidence. At some point, coincidences do not exist. That's what made me switch.
Okay. Yeah. My religion taught me that God is in charge. He controls everything. You control nothing. And that was okay. I lived with that for a long time. But when I was a teenager, one of my sisters brought home a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer and Your Erroneous Zones. And I read it, and it was way up here. and I was way down here. And so he was trying to explain these principles that were so amazing. And I admit I caught a glimpse or a flicker of, okay, I guess that's possible. But it it was it was like it was like when I listened to your songs that you're singing in French, I almost think I recognize one or two words, and I definitely recognize the words in the title, even though I don't know what they mean. But it's so beautiful that I want more. And so I listen more. And the more I listen, the more I begin to get more words. Hear the, okay, I hear this distinction. And that was my experience was because I read Wayne Dyer numerous times as a teenager, and then I got introduced to Napoleon Hill. Oh yes, Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and the Franklin Covey Institute with their time management. And I wanted to understand, but there was always something in my way. It was stopping me.
You see, when you're describing the process, it just makes me think of someone who is hearing a foreign language and who just thinks like, oh, it's not for me, it's too complicated, it's not my language, you know? But the more they listen, the more they try to understand what it means, the more meaning they grasp. But it's really a step-by-step process. It's not something you're going to understand. You can understand it just like this, but here, I'm not sure. Maybe, no, I don't know. But that's a question, actually. But it's what you described, I guess.
Well, I have met it was some people down in Puerto Rico, and I can't remember the song exactly, but they sang this Britney Spears American English song word for word. And so I thought I could walk up to them and say, "Hey, what's happening?" Or "How are you?" And it was so funny. They said, "Oh, I know speak English." You just sang a song that I don't even know the words to, and you don't speak English?
My first song I sang on stage was an English song, and I really could sing it, but phonetically. But I couldn't understand English. That's exactly the first. So that's why also in the spiritual world, there are some people that speak the language, but they don't really know what it means. You know?
Well, it's like when I sing Magnificat in
Uh,
Latin.
yeah.
I don't know what that means, but it sure is pretty.
Absolutely. And if the effect is good, well, then you have no problem. But coming
So
back,
so to me, it's like you can say the words. I did the actions for years, but I didn't understand what I was doing. And
yeah,
it wasn't until I was almost 40 that it started really clicking. And I mean, I met you when I was 45, so it takes time.
takes time. And I'm not sure that anyone can really explain this because it's not something that you can explain with words, even though I mostly function with words and the mental plane, but it's really something you experience. That's why I told you I think the key factor is people, the way you feel, and actually it's what you cannot say that it's the deal breaker. It's you just feel it. That's really difficult, for someone who just like I think it's Saint Thomas, who just believes what he can see, what can you see that
Oh yeah,
materialistic
Doubting
truth.
Thomas.
Yes, thank you.
And to a certain extent, I think some of that might be maturity. You know, you gain experience of thinking and acting and it not turning out very well, and then feeling and acting and it turning out really well. That's been one of my biggest challenges, is learning to listen to my feelings and letting go of, well, if I do this, I'll make more money, but I'll hate it.
And this goes back to the multi-level marketing thing, because most people that enter that personal development world or spiritual world, may you call it what you want, but they tell you you have to have multiple sources of income. This is part of it. And so multi-level marketing is a way. And I'm still part of this, but from a very, I do it when I love it. So, but when you do it because someone told you, because that's how it's done, well, guess what? It's not really gonna first fulfill you. It's not always gonna work because you don't really believe in it and there's no real purpose. People who manage to manifest, I mean, abundance in all ways, it's just they do what they love to do. That's all.
That's it. And multi-level marketing is fabulous for some people. For a lot of people, it is as much work as anything else. I mean, you're gonna work. What I didn't understand, and I was so grateful that you helped me, is why not work at what you love? Let go of needing to work on what somebody else loves and what fulfills them and what works for them, because not everything works for everybody. And that's okay.
Absolutely. And most of the time in this world, we work for somebody else's purpose.
Yeah.
And it can work until you reach a certain point, but at some point, it's just like, no, don't
Well,
my share.
so last year I was super, super depressed because I was working for a company. I had changed into a career from my coaching, but I was so tired of working for somebody else. And then it dawned on me, I've never worked for somebody else. I have contracted my labor and my mind out to, I've rented it out to someone else, but I've never worked for them. I've always been in business for myself. And when I figured that, part of the thing that helped me figure that out is that I took responsibility back for my own budgeting, for my own spending. So the work, and I realized I'm bringing money in on one side, doing a job that I am fully capable and skilled at doing. And I use that money to buy or to purchase my life. The things that I love, the things that I want, the things that interest and intrigue me and that enliven me.
So yes, I see. You're shedding light on the perspective. Depend on the perspective. You didn't work for someone else, you contracted. It's different.
Exactly. And that gave me power. And so what I started doing is I'd write myself a note. This is what I am willing to do with my time. This is the product or the service that I offer to my customers. I do not offer other products or services. I do not sell coffee and clean toilets and make wonderful new peas all at the same time. No, I do peas. Somebody else needs to take care of the toilets and somebody else needs to take care of the coffee. I am going to focus on the peas. And when I allowed myself to focus on that, because she wanted me to be in charge of sales and in charge of advertising and in charge of customer relations and in charge of all of these other things. And I was like, I had to let go of my need to be everything to everybody.
That's an interesting point because most of the time we want to do everything by ourselves, control everything. I'm like this. I want to control everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But actually, yeah, just having faith that you just do what you have to do, your part, and that the rest is going to be taken care of. And it's feeling that you still have the power, even though you don't do everything. And this might be, yeah.
Last year, I also discovered I don't like dusting. I had done it for years. I did it all the time because I thought I had to be perfect. And a perfect person has dusted bookshelves.
So that's your vision of a perfect person that
Well,
enslaved you to that vision.
yeah. Yeah. But the second, or actually what it was I was in charge of everything because my wife was in graduate school. And suddenly I had to prioritize. Am I going to do those things which I really don't want to do, that don't really need to be done, that nobody's checking on anyway?
But you, yeah.
Well, yeah. And so I started having to choose, what am I going to do? What am I capable of doing? And I realized dusting isn't one of them. So I let it go.
You let it go. You didn't lose. You let it go.
Oh, I lost my mind for a couple of months before I let it go.
You see, there are things we're doing. We think we're losing. Well, actually,
Well, and that was one of the things I felt like a loser because my shelves aren't dusted. You know, I felt like such a failure, such a terrible person. But once I let that go, my shelves are now dusty and I'm okay with it.
it's such a detail you're talking about, but it can make us feel so irrelevant when it's so small. And I guess this is it in that world, is that for such detail, sometimes we feel like crap and
Yep.
we feel forced to do things we shouldn't be doing actually. And we just don't have that perspective. And I really can feel like this. I resonate with what you're saying, and I still have to work on my relationship to dusting, I must say. I have to let it go, I think.
Well, and here's one thing. I know that over the last 2 weeks, you've had to let go of a lot.
My gosh. Yeah,
I mean, think of all the books you've let go of.
that's just crazy. Like that was the hardest thing I had to do, because of all the books, I still have a pile that needs to go back to me, all the Bob Proctor books and Wallace Waddle. But most of my books, they're gone. They're gone. Neighbors are happy. I don't know who is happy with them, but I was so attached and not free. But I know I never took the time to read them. And it was just a burden in the end, but I didn't realize. But now it's okay. I'm here. I don't really miss them. And but yeah, I had to let go.
And in the letting go, when I've done it, this weight falls off my shoulders. Because you're right. You were never going to read them again anyway.
No, and some of
That's,
them I never took the time to read, you know? So
yeah.
they were just there because at some point I had an urge or I felt like I needed to read them, but I don't know what I was responding to or reacting to, you know?
Or was it a fear of missing out? One of your, see, this is a lot of this stuff over here is one of my mentors said, Og Mandino is such a great author. I read his book and it changed my life. You should read it and it'll change your life. So I bought the trilogy of Og Mandino. If I could get my finger to go where it's supposed to. Og Mandino is right there. I know exactly which book it is. And I opened it about 3 times 2 years ago.
And so also that's a question that I once asked myself, not once, but anyway, where does the knowledge from books come from? Because it's not because you read books that you're wiser, you have more knowledge, but even though, where does knowledge come from? Really? See, that's a very interesting question.
It comes, I loved what Neil Donald Walsh said. It comes from your soul, which wrote it down so that your brain could accept it.
Because if you didn't have, yeah, if the book wasn't there, you wouldn't accept it. But you know, for most people, it's very difficult to understand what you just said. Maybe I'm just being a bit conceited, I don't know. But because we lack faith in our abilities, in our power, that we think we need books, we need teachers, we need the outside world to help us know what is knowing, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's why kids have so much knowledge before, no?
Oh, yeah. Before we beat it out of them.
Exactly.
No, not beat it out of, before
No.
we train it out of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. Our children are intuitively just powerhouses, but we train them to be small and to live within their brain.
And we trained adults to think that they know everything when they basically, yeah, we're like children, but who've been trained up. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're just the big children that have been trained not to trust ourselves.
That's it. And on that, I guess we
Yep,
could say that in the end, we're never losing because we all have it. We have it all in us.
exactly. And by letting go of the teachings, the trainings that we have, we reclaim what we lost.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you, Nid, for that great talk after a long time.
Yes. Thank you, Delphine.